The VolQuest 2-Minute Drill is brought to you by Craven Wings.
Alongside Brent Hubbs, I'm Austin Price. Craven Wings 2-Minute Drill on this Wednesday. We got to hear from both coordinators. We also got to hear from new tight ends coach Alec, Abel. And before we get going on that, don't forget to get your pre-orders in for the Super Bowl at Craven Wings. Also, the 4th annual Grim Reaper Challenge. The semifinals this week is at Foothills Mall. Next week, it will change locations. The following week, it will change locations. We'll talk more about that next week. The finals, eventually, will be against Jacob Warren. So, Grim Reaper Challenge. More information, hit the Craven Wings Facebook page. You hear Tim Banks talk, Brent, and, a lot healthier than they have been. I mean, two years ago, they had me and you playing linebacker. Last spring, they had me and you playing corner. I mean, this year, we're not having to play.
No, I mean, and that's going to create some competition, I think, for both of those positions, which is really important. They've obviously got some depth at the defensive line position returning. So, I think it's going to be a more competitive spring, which is something that Tim Banks is very much looking forward to. And, it's interesting. He said they had not completed their, quote, deep dive in reviewing last year. He's done a lot on his own when he's been on the road recruiting, but they haven't really done all that as a staff. But he made it very clear there's two priorities for this defense moving into this next year, and it starts in spring practice. Get to the quarterback better with your front four, tighten up things on the back end, particularly in your zone defense. That is Joshua Joseph, James Pierce. It's time to go off the edge because Tennessee's replacing Byron Young there. So they need help up front where you don't have to run all the games to try to get to the quarterback.
Yeah.
You can get there with four. And then obviously a healthy batch of competition in the back end to create more depth and create tighter windows for quarterbacks to throw in because you got guys playing more aggressively with more confidence.
Joey Halsley, now I won't say the ultimate decision maker because that's Josh Heifel, but his say goes a lot further than it did, just 2 months ago now as the OC.
Yeah, and I asked him straight up, have you had an aha moment? Have you had a moment where you're in a meeting and you're kind of looking around for somebody to answer or to wrap things up, and it's like, that's you, Hoss, you're in charge here. He said, listen, we're very collaborative in the offensive room. Everybody's got a voice, everybody's got a say. So that's not really changed. He said the biggest change for him is on the recruiting front. More phone calls to make, more film to evaluate. He's not just watching quarterbacks, right? He's evaluating quarterbacks, offensive linemen, running backs, tight ends, receivers, because he does have an ultimate say on that side of the ball in terms of who they like, who they're going to go after, what their board's going to look like, what the priorities on those boards are. And so from that standpoint, he said that's been the biggest change for him as the offensive coordinator. But he's very much looking forward to getting to the field and getting going. He said nothing will change what they do. He dropped the phrase "rip it" about 3 times today because he wants to make sure all these guys are going fast.
That's his phrase, dating back to last year. He's talking about Alec Abel and talked about what kind of teacher he is and says there's a difference between being knowledgeable in the offense and being able to teach the offense.
Yeah, and I thought that was an interesting comment to make. When you consider Alec Abel has never run a room before, he's never been a true on-the-field coach. So it's kind of hard to say, boy, he's a great teacher, right? But he has spent a lot of time helping guys learn their positions and doing that in the film room, much the same way Kelsey Pope did with Jalen Hyatt. The year that Kelsey Pope was a quality control guy here behind Cody Burns. So I asked Alec Abel, what makes you a good teacher? What's your history? And he credited Glenn Ellerby for what he learned as a player under Glenn Ellerby. And then he also said, he gets a lot of joy out of explaining the why to people. He likes to make sure they understand the big picture why, and that's something that he felt like he's been able to do for the offensive linemen. I think that's something Cooper Mays has talked about, other linemen have talked about, not just knowing this step, that step, if you run this play, but why you've got to go there. What's the point of going there so that you can adjust on the fly in this fast-paced system?
Flipping back to Joey Halsley, he did talk about the fact that Nico's going to get a lot of reps this spring, and they all are. I mean, whether it's Gaston Moore or Navy Schuler or whoever, the quarterback room is a lot thinner than when they were trying to, pair things out 2 springs ago with Hendon Hooker and Brian Maurer and Harrison Bailey and everybody else. There's a different feel to it. So Nico's going to, get plenty of reps. And Joey, it's basically his advice to all the freshmen. You're going to make mistakes. Let's go out there, just go ahead and make them, and we'll come in here and review it, figure it out, and see if you make the same mistakes next day.
Yeah, and remember, Joey Halsley's made it clear this is an open competition at quarterback. Joe's got to go out and perform, and Nico's, obviously going to have opportunities to go out there and play and perform. He was very complimentary of Nico and the work that he had put in in and around the Polynesian Bowl and the things he had taken from the bowl prep and really put to use to try to learn on his own before he came back to school here. I think all those guys, you know, when you bring in 19 newcomers, there creates a sense of urgency for a lot of guys there. Veteran players, hey, there's somebody here to compete with. Young players saying, I've got to take full advantage of my opportunities. And I think when you have a big group like that, it's probably easier for them to buy into those early opportunities as opposed to being one of 3 or 4 guys who are like, okay, I'm here, but I'm not really here yet,
Sure.
right? Now, if there's 20 of us, let's go. I mean, let's go see what we can do out there. So it should make for an exciting spring. I think this has got a chance. I think it's 40 days till it starts on March 20th. This has got a chance to feel a lot different than other springs because it's just going to be more competitive across the board throughout all the positions.
You mean last year where there was no spring game and we went over there for a scrimmage and after 2 series we were all like, okay, let's let it end. It's ready to end.
Well, we had the snow day. We had lots of things going on, right?
Oh, that was awful.
There will be a true spring game in the stadium this year, though.
This is true. One thing more going out the door, Coach Halsey was uncommittal on where he'll start Cam Selden. It's going to be running back. That's where he'll start, and then we'll see kind of where things develop from there. Either way, kid is, as everybody keeps talking about, I think people more impressed the more they've been around him, even in the last couple of weeks since he got here.
Yeah, and I think the thing that Joey Halsey made clear is he can do as much. He will get to do as much as he can mentally handle.
Yep.
And they want him to learn something and not get flooded with too many things, and then they want to build on that. But you could see it in Joey Halsey's facial expression. That's a toy we can do a lot of different things with. Just can't go too fast. You got to let him learn it and get comfortable along the way. So they'll take their time with it, starting out at running back, but we'll see where he's at come into spring, and then we'll see where he's at come into fall camp, because I think they feel like they can do a lot with him.
Well, no matter where you are, make sure you get to Craven Wings and get those pre-orders for the Super Bowl. It's a big game this weekend, a lot of internal tailgating at home, great place to get some food before the big game between the Chiefs and Eagles. He is Brent Hubbs. I'm Austin Price for the Craven Wings 2-Minute Drill.
When you're craving wings, it's got to be Craven Wings. Online at cravenwings.com.